And she says, has the audacity to say out her mouth, if you control a man's food, you control him. And the minute she said him, it altered the course of the rest of my life, because I said, oh. I walked outside, I called my wife and I said, we're not getting old and dying anymore in our community, we're getting sick and dying. And we're getting sick as early as 30, 35 years of age. We're on medications for the rest of our life. We also have to know that the meat industry played a major role in destroying the reputation and destroying the value of tofu and other analog meat products. And for me to get it at 7, that means, our children could get this. And I went against my family. So everybody in the house is eating pork. And I'm like, Miss Williams is too fine for me to go against her and go back and eat some pork. There's nobody that says, oh, I'm in business to provide a viable food source to black people. There's nobody else that's doing that. Other people are doing business because they want to provide food to black people, but a viable food source, one that's going to improve their health, improve their quality of life, lengthen their life. I think it's important for us to recognize that we're at war. This isn't peacetime, and it hasn't been peacetime, I don't think, since we've been here, since, maybe not since we've been here, but since they've been here. Let me put it that way. It hasn't been a time of peace. And, there's that expression, your health is your wealth. Well, I don't agree with that at all. Your health is everything, because when you lose it, it's gone. And nothing else matters at that point.
Welcome to another episode of Young, Black, and Vegan. I'm sitting with the owner of eLife in Washington, Dr. Baruch. How you doing today, sir?
Great, brother. How about yourself?
I'm good. I'm
great,
good.
Great.
So,
yes, sir.
Tell me a little bit about you, what you do, why you started this restaurant.
Wow, how far do you want to go back, man? I was 7 years old. She was the most attractive woman I'd ever seen in my life. She was my 2nd grade teacher, and she had a problem with me eating pork. And as a result of that, I developed an understanding, a consciousness about what goes into my body behind that conversation. And so I stopped eating pork. And then 4 or 5 years later, I stopped eating all meat. So this has been my journey for the better part of my life. 46 years now, 46 years of no longer consuming any dead animals. And so this evolution into owning a plant-based restaurant actually started in one conversation, one day at 7 years old with the most attractive woman I'd ever seen, my 2nd grade teacher, Miss Williams, who started me on this journey. Had she asked me, why are you wearing that shirt? I might be selling clothes today, but here I am. And again, it's been a journey of love, but it's also been one where I understand it's my responsibility to the community. There's purpose behind this. So in 1995, I realized that I always went to other people's neighborhoods to go get food for me and my family. And that wasn't gonna work. I said, wait a minute, what about those of us in this community? And it's simultaneously now, I'm listening to a woman practice her speech at a food conference. So I'm setting up all the computers. I'm the IT guy, setting up all the computers, making sure everything's talking, making sure all of the presentations are going like they should. And she says, has the audacity to say out her mouth, if you control a man's food, you control him. And the minute she said him, it altered the course of the rest of my life, because I said, oh. I walked outside, I called my wife and I said, we're gonna be opening up a restaurant. And it was that day that I knew then that I was gonna be in this space. So within 2 weeks, I had 21 products in my garage that I was distributing to 5 different households. And from there it expanded, and we were on Georgia Avenue in Washington, D.C. We've since expanded. We've got 2 locations in D.C., 1 here in Maryland. And we're about providing a viable food source to a community disserved and underserved. We purposefully, on purpose, took healthy food and wrapped it inside of soul so that it would attract you. So this was, you can't call it, it's not malicious, so it's benevolent intent.
Okay.
So we have benevolent intent when we did this. We're specifically going after the healthiest food that we can find, that we can put that soulful flavor to, and we bring it to our community. Shell, I would say the other thing that would add to who we are is every time I'm asked to speak at a lecture, a workshop, seminar, especially on a panel where others are saying what they do as restaurateurs or what have you, there's nobody that says, oh, I'm in business to provide a viable food source to black people. There's nobody else that's doing that. You know, other people are doing business because they want to provide food to black people, but a viable food source, one that's going to improve their health, improve their quality of life, lengthen their life, you know, and the list goes on, increase their, upgrade their vibration, you know, which of course affects all sides of their life. That's what we're about.
And so the seed started when you were 7 years old.
7 years old.
Because of a teacher. Talk about your vegan journey. What does that look like? Do you have kids? Are they vegan? What have been the major benefits that you've seen and experienced?
Great. Well, when I started veganism, you had to have a big imagination. So, and I should say plant-based. When I started on this plant-based journey, you had to have a really vivid and big imagination because we didn't have food like what we have today. You know, you weren't going and getting food that was made to taste like anything else. You were getting a block of tofu and you had to have an imagination. So you take that block of tofu and you put some Obe seasoning on it and your imagination tells you, well, that's fish. You put some ketchup on it, it's a burger. You know, you fry it and do whatever. But it was big on us having to replace that or fill that gap. So back when I was first entering into the plant-based world, I had to have a really good imagination. You know, I had to fill the gap between what my taste buds were accustomed to and now making the adjustment to choosing food, not based on taste, but choosing food based on its nutritional value. So I had to be very imaginative, I had to be very disciplined, and it was tough. So now as a result of, you know, manipulation of food and food science and doing all the work to make plants taste like, you know, they become those analog meats. So they're tasting like meats to some extent. They look like it. You know, it's a different journey for a person who's making the transition now. But one of the most significant things that happened to me is I used to get ridiculed. People would talk about me. Bird man, rabbit food man, carrot eating, you know, why don't you go out in the backyard and cut the grass and you can have dinner, you know, those kind of jokes. Right. All through my, you know, all the way up through junior high school, there were jokes, you know, what you got for lunch today, you know, and it was just joke after joke after joke, and it's such a pleasure to now, you know, 40 years later, come back to the school reunion. And people say, man, except for the gray hair, you look just like you looked when we was in school. And I can't say the same for them. Right. I'm like, oh, how the kids? You know, you got to come up with something else to say because they have all, you know, evolved into what they ate themselves into being.
So let's talk about tofu. You mentioned tofu. What are your thoughts on tofu?
So I'm going to use it based on what I think most people's thoughts are on tofu. Most people think tofu is feminizing us and growing hairs on women's faces and stuff like that. Well, you'd have to look at the population of people that consume more tofu than probably all of us. That's the Asian population. They don't have that problem. What the problem that we have in the United States of America is just processed food overall. And what is allowed to be included in that process is what is damaging the health and is also damaging the reputation of some of the food items out there that, you know, get a bad name. We also have to know that the meat industry played a major role in destroying the reputation and destroying the value of tofu and other analog meat products. So they did a really great job in ruining. So everybody thought, well, I might as well just eat meat. If I'm gonna eat that, I might as well eat meat. Does it mean that it's healthy or the healthiest? No, it's not the healthiest, but it's a great transition point. So you can transition with tofu, you can get the taste, you can get the texture, you know, and they're better quality tofus than others. I mean, if you get low grade tofu, you're likely to not get as much nutrition from it, or you might not get any. And so that's probably the same way with anything. If you get a better quality, you get a better benefit from it. But as far as the reputation that tofu has of feminizing populations of people, there are populations of people that have been consuming this for eons, right? And they don't have that issue, you know. So it's in large part it has to do with the processing in America that food goes through that has damaged the tofu that we're consuming, but it damages a lot of the food that we're consuming. It's just tofu was the one that took the rap.
So what are your favorite sources of protein?
Wow, it'd probably be seaweed. You know, the seaweeds are my favorite source of proteins, would be where I get the greatest benefit, But I also understand I don't need as much as what we were told we needed as children. That's not the case. And I've raised 7 children, and no, that's not the case. They're all vegan, and they've eaten plant-based for the majority of their lives, and they don't have the health challenges again that their friends have. And they're young, so their friends are on medications, their friends have health issues, and they don't.
So seaweeds, break that down. What forms were you getting this? Where can people get it and implement it? How can they implement it into their eating?
The most popular are like the spirulina or the chlorella. Those are very popular, very dense with nutrition, very dense with protein in particular, and other vitamins and minerals. But you can also get it in the actual whole form, where you can make a salad out of it. So there's wakame, there's a couple others that slip my mind at the moment, but there are several other seaweeds that you can use in food preparation, where you're getting the nutritional benefit, you're getting the minerals that are coming out of the salt water. So you're getting those, but also you're getting those proteins. But you'd be surprised how much protein you're getting in a stalk of broccoli. Some kale or some collards. You'd be surprised how much you're getting out of that. But again, that they don't get the commercials on television. There's not a big ad campaign for your child needs to eat more broccoli so that they can have protein, so that they can be active, and also so that they can get good brain function. It's just the money's not there. You don't hear any commercials about vegetables these days. You hear commercials about the other things, especially those that come to our community. But some of the best sources for me are definitely in the seaweed category.
Let's talk about a little bit about what you do.
I'm a naturopath, so I'm more of an educator, and that's my whole goal. So whether you come to me for a private consultation or I'm speaking to a room full of 10,000 people, my goal is to elevate their understanding about what nutrition or the role nutrition plays in maintaining their wealth and increasing their life expectancy. And that's the work that I do, because I realize that's where our community is under attack. We're not getting old and dying anymore in our community. We're getting sick and dying. And we're getting sick as early as 30, 35 years of age. We're on medications for the rest of our life. So my goal is to educate people away from being dependent upon a system that makes money off of keeping them sick, and giving them the roadmap, which, once you give somebody the roadmap, it's not something that they need to come back to you for. When they know that I should eat this way, I should supplement this way, and I should steer clear of all these things out here, then if they follow those instructions, they're good for the rest of their lives, which is why I think this is something that should be taught in all of our charter schools, all of our schools that are focused on African-centered education. We should be teaching nutrition so that our children can get this at an early age. Like, I got it at 7. And for me to get it at 7, that means, our children could get this. Mm-hmm. And I went against my family. So everybody in the house is eating pork. And I'm like, Miss Williams is too fine for me to go against her and go back and eat some pork. But I really think that's a big part of what I do. I educate. Okay. And I have seen where, as a restaurateur, once I started bringing in educators about nutrition, health, and wellness, it increased my customer base, it increased my credibility, and that made me more successful. So that's why I bought into the whole notion of I need to know more than my customer knows about what they need to do in order to be healthy and maintain health inside of their body, their family, their neighborhood, their communities. So that's why I decided to embark upon the journey to be a naturopath. And that's what I do. I teach people. I want to download as much information as I can to you so that you can get it and therefore be able to, save your own life and save somebody else's life too.
Got you. Now, off camera, I heard you mention that you feel like this is the time for the melanated man. Mm-hmm. What do you mean by that?
Well, I think we're looking at a world that is changing rapidly. I mean, literally, with the drop of the next bomb, it's changing. With another African country telling the French where they could go, it's changing. With African Americans, black folk here in America deciding that, or recognizing that this government, the pharmaceutical drug dealers, the medical industrial complex do not have their best interest at heart. The world is changing. We're raising our children differently. We're seeing that, well, maybe some of the things that we thought were of benefit to us, or that we needed, or that we depended on and trusted, they can't be trusted. We can't depend on them. We can't have success. So we're recognizing that there's enough changing in our community with regard to our relationships, our economy, our health. We could go down the list. Just the social dynamics in our community have changed so drastically over the last 30, 40 years. Some of us are waking up. Some of us remember what life was like in the 60s and 70s. And we're waking up and realizing, well, wait a minute, this happened under our watch. We remember a time when it wasn't. So something has happened, and you can look across the board with regard to our health, with regard to our economics, with regard to, just our relationships with one another. It's changed so drastically that some of us are just saying, well, whatever it takes to get it back. Mm-hmm. Whatever we have to do to get this back is what we should be focusing on. We should be doing this work. Yeah, so it's important for us to recognize our responsibility and our responsibility not just to ourselves, but to the next generation. I'm not doing this work for me. I'm doing this work for the next generation so that they get it, so that they can build, so that they can grow, so that they can have a foundation that they can stand on and do the same for their next generation.
Appreciate you letting us sit down in your restaurant. I
Yes,
definitely will be back. Any other things you want to mention or you think is important to say?
I think it's important for us to recognize that we're at war. This isn't peacetime, and it hasn't been peacetime, I don't think, since we've been, here. Since maybe not since we've been here, but since they've been here. Let me put it that way. It hasn't been a time of peace. It's just that the war now is a little bit more difficult to recognize. It's a little bit more challenging to even counteract because it's been interwoven into our existence to the extent that almost like, to not do what they're asking us to do would make me not me anymore. And that's what we have to be careful with, because me is not even me. We're not who we are in the sense that we're being miseducated and we're being, we see ourselves as something that we're not. We're not recognizing who we are and what our responsibility is. So this warfare that's being waged against us is affecting everything that I just mentioned, from relationships to our economy, definitely our health. And there's that expression, your health is your wealth. Well, I don't agree with that at all. Your health is everything, because when you lose it, it's gone, and nothing else matters at that point. So your health is everything, and that's how we need to start treating our existence. We need to recognize that we have a responsibility to this next generation. We have a responsibility to ourselves, and we have a responsibility to those who got us this far. That we have to push this forward. We have to build on this, and we have to create a better tomorrow for our people.
All right. Well, shout out the restaurant. Where can people come? Try this food out?
Yep. Well, Everlasting Life has been around since 1995, so we've been around for a minute, 28 years now. And we're located at 9033 Central Avenue in Capitol Heights, Maryland. We're also located at 341 Cedar Street in Northwest Washington, D.C., and 1231 Good Hope Road inside the Anacostia Arts Center in D.C. Again, the best plant-based soul food on the planet. We're here.
Best plant-based soul food on the planet. Well, I definitely will be back to eat some more of it.
Yes, sir.
It's a pleasure.
Pleasure. Yes, sir.